Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for our next panel, and to guide you through the next 45 minutes or so, please give a massive round of applause to our new moderator for this film. Give up a massive the brilliant, the multi-talented Englishman in San Diego.
We got one eventually. Hello everybody, welcome along. Hello MCM Scotland, how are you? How are we doing, okay? It's great to have you here. My name's Len Sultana. I run a website called An Englishman in San Diego, which is all about comics and comic conventions, and I get the chance to speak to some amazing creators. And the great thing about it is MCM have tasked me with talking to our comics creators at the future shows here in Scotland and also down in London, and it's great that I've got the chance to speak to the people that we've got coming on stage. Have we got any comics fans in the room, first and foremost? Have we got people who actually are comics readers? Comics fans at a Comic-Con, good God, what are the odds? Fantastic that you're here. Ladies and gents, we've got two people joining us on stage who are quite frankly at the top of their game, and it's a pleasure to have them on stage. Can you please welcome first and foremost somebody who's at this point messing around with Venom, and he's currently doing some serious damage to Thanos as well, and he's going to be playing around with the Guardians very shortly indeed. Can you please make some noise and welcome to the stage, Donny Cates! Hello there, Donny. Welcome along, sir. Take a seat, please. And can we also please welcome to the stage a man who has done some serious work with some serious creators and is quite frankly one of the best comic creators going around at the moment, one of the best writers, and certainly in the forefront of Batman fans at the moment. Can you make some noise, please? Azzarello! Hello there, Brian. Welcome along, welcome along. Take a seat, sirs. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a brief chat about these guys and their work, and then we're going to open it up to questions towards the back end. Yes, so if that's okay with you guys? You okay with taking questions for them? Fantastic. First and foremost, I think I would like to ask you basically about what your feelings are about what you do, because at the end of the day, I know there are a number of creators that kind of say that they are writers, they are comic writers, they are writers that happen to write comics. When it comes to introducing yourself at those dinner parties, how do you introduce yourselves? We'll start with Brian. It's just your name? You don't go into what you actually... No, you're a writer, first and foremost?
When somebody asks me what I do, yeah, I write comic books. Yeah.
Yeah, because the reason why I wanted to ask that is because you didn't start with comics, I know you studied arts and painting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you went into long form writing and kind of progressed into comics. When did you kind of feel that you were a comics writer, would you say?
And I got a check from DC Comics.
When you actually got paid and did the first professional thing. Fair enough. Donny, how do you introduce yourself at parties? Are you a comics writer? Are you a writer? How do you...
I mostly just tend to lie and say that I work at like a Macy's department store or something, because I just don't want to get into it. Because people have so many questions about what it is I do, because no one believes that what we do is a real job. And so, but eventually when I have to stop lying, I tell them that I'm a writer for I do it in layers. I try and make it cool, and then it trims down into the reality. So I'll be like, oh, I'm a writer for Marvel. And they're like, oh my God, did you write Infinity War? And I'm like, well, I wrote Thanos. The single issue Thanos has nothing to do with that thing. I did that thing. So most, it's getting to a cool point. When I was growing up, if you were to tell a human being that you wrote a book called Thanos, they'd have no idea who you were talking about, unless it was one of our kind, you know. But yeah, I don't really know. You know, I saw someone's biopic on Twitter once that had there's a very popular, famous writer, and in their occupation it said fry cook. And I always loved that, because that was that writer's first job, and he just never changed it. And so it was like, you know, it was like Neil Gaiman fry cook. And I always loved the idea of keeping yourself grounded about it, you know. And the other half of your question was like, what does the day look like, or what is it?
No, that was that first moment when you realised that you were a comic writer. That,
Right.
You know, when you kind of made that progression to actually say that, no, I am a comics writer.
Sure. Yeah, I actually went to school to be a penciler and to be an artist and a painter and a sculptor. Went to art school, and part of my coursework is that we had to take mandatory writing classes. And I was in this class with a professor named Mark Neese, who I still credit as the guy who got me started. And he kind of pulled me aside and said, you know, you could be good at this if you tried. Like you're really rough, but I can see the parts that are unteachable that you already have, and everything else is just teachable. So if you wanted to do this, you could try it. And so I just started doing that. I just started diving into it, and then this was 2009. Like I had never written a single word in my life until 2009. You know,
Because in your comics career, you started as an intern for Marvel, didn't you?
A little bit before that, I obviously, you know, I grew up reading comics and everything, but then I moved to Austin, Texas in about 2004, and I ended up being in charge of a chain of 4 comic book stores, and I oversaw those comic book stores until a car drove through one of them. Everyone was fine, unfortunately. And then my drum set was set up in the back, and that got destroyed. That was really the bummer part. But our insurance couldn't cover it because, as it turns out, the owner of the shops wasn't into like paying rent. They hate it when you don't do that, and so they all shut down. And I was very distraught because I could have been a retailer for the rest of my life. I loved it. So I gave it a shot to go to school to learn how to be in comics more. And I remember, do any of you guys know who Trad Moore is? He's an artist. Trad Moore. You guys know who Jeff Shaw is? Jeff Shaw did my Thanos run and God Country and books I've done. I was in classes with both of those guys. And as soon as I saw both of their work as freshmen, I was like, well, fuck this. I'll never be as good as these guys. And so I took the scholarship money that I was awarded for classes and just spent it all on hiring artists to do books for me, which is not a dope plan. Don't do any of that, but it's seemingly worked out.
When it came to actually learning your craft at those initial days then, because I was speaking to a comics creator last week at a con, and we were talking about how you kind of learn how to write comics. There's no real set way, there's no real set, people just kind of fall into their pattern of how they do it. With screenwriting, there's kind of like courses, and there's certain layouts and certain ways that you actually create and write a comic. Where did you kind of learn your first, what was the first piece of comic script that you read that you went, okay, that's how you write a comic? Did you? What was the first one you straight? Because I think someone, the person I spoke to was Killing Joke. He read the script for Killing Joke, and that's how he learned how to write a comic. How did you learn how to do what you do? Long-winded question, I do apologize.
I don't remember what the first script was that I saw. It might have been one of Grant's, actually.
That's a wordy script.
No, really? Yeah, it was wordy, but the structure was like, oh, I get the structure now, that's all. My scripts are not wordy at all, and that's because when I was starting, pretty much I was working with Eduardo, and now he lived in Argentina, he spoke Spanish, the scripts had to be translated, so I kept him, bare bones, still do.
Even with panel descriptions, you keep it really kind of loose?
I hate doing that. Oh
yeah?
My God, yeah.
Okay. Yourself, Donny? What was the first comic script you read and went, okay, that's how I write a comic?
Was the person you were talking to, was it Matt Fraction?
It wasn't, no.
It was
Kelly? No, it was a British creator. It was Ian Edgerton.
Okay, because that's advice that Matt used to put in his blogs and stuff. Would just find a comic book that you adore and kind of reverse engineer it and see how they're accomplishing all those things and everything, which was what I did, because he published it in the back of like a comics magazine in the 90s hey! Alright.
Nearly worked.
Wouldn't that have been so cool if that actually is not? And so I kind of followed that because at the time, you know, growing up, I mean, we had internet around, but like we didn't have it in our homes. Like we would be a library kind of thing. And so I couldn't really look up. There wasn't really an online resource to like look at people's scripts unless you found like a really cool hardback that would publish extra materials and stuff like that. So I remember I wrote about 20 issues of this book that never got published, but none of it was paneled out, none of it was shot by shot, and I mean, it was just prose it was horrific. I mean, it must have been an artist's nightmare.
The pair of you, do you kind of look back at your early scripts and see how those first fledgling efforts, where do you see them, how they've evolved into how you're writing now?
I think they're overwritten. Yeah, the older ones. The less amount of words I can use, the better.
You know, leave it to the artist, or to some degree?
Yeah.
Yeah?
No, I'm the same way. I mean, even just from like the beginning of my Marvel work last year till now, I can see myself throttling back on my captionings. I think for whatever reason, when I first got Thanos, I felt like I had to do this faux operatic Jim Starlin-y voice to everything, which I quite like. It's a voice that we don't use that often, but yeah, I've been trying to bring things back because left to my own devices, I will smother a page, you know. And it depends on who I'm working with. Also, if I work with Jeff Shaw, who I've worked with for 10 years now, it's not uncommon for me to fill up a page with captioning or words or anything like that, and the page will come back and I'll say, drop all that shit. Like he's just nailed it. You know, his acting is superb.
Because you've obviously been paired up with some incredible artists over both of your careers. But what's the process then in creating the ownership of the final work? And we talk about how some people think it's just you guys writing the scripts, it's sent off to the artist, and then it's just kind of like progressing there. How much backwards and forwards do you have with your artists when you try and put your creations together? Right?
It depends on who I'm working with. You know, some people want more feedback than others.
Well, what's, say for example with Lee then, what's the process?
Lee and I, we talk a lot. Yeah. We just talk a lot. I mean, not so much about what we're working on, but he'll call. Maybe we talk like once a week.
Well, I think we'll talk about that relationship with yourself and Lee, because it has created such iconic books. I mean, Joker is a book which you're obviously well known about. How did you find out about him, and how did you two kind of pair up? How were you thrown together?
Lee was working at Wildstorm at the time, and Jim wanted to put him on a mini-series, and Jim wanted me to work for Wildstorm, so I went out and had dinner with Jim and Lee one night in San Diego. And talked about it, we got along, and it's like, yeah, sure, let's work.
It sounds relatively easy.
It is relatively easy.
It's fallen together.
Yeah, well, I mean, we almost stopped working together at one point. When we were done with Lex Luthor, that was like, things didn't go so well with that. It went longer than it was time-wise than it was supposed to, and the whole like initiative that Wildstorm was doing, taking these DC characters, it kind of petered out because some of the other books just didn't even get finished. Whatever, it was Wildstorm. And when we were done, it was just like, well, we're done with this. Let's not work together anymore because we get along. and it'd be terrible, you know, let's just be friends.
You want to stay friends, yes.
Yes, and this was in San Diego, and we made the decision we were going to have dinner that day. I met with Dan DiDio, and he, based on Luther, he was like, you know, we would like you to do that with all the other villains. Well, not all of them. It's like, you know, pick one from Wonder Woman's villain and Green Lantern's villain and the Flash's villain. I'm like, who are those villains? I had no idea. And so it was like, I have nothing to say about those characters. And he goes, well, what about Batman? I said, well, I guess maybe Joker. And went out to dinner with Lee, and he said, you know, they want us to do this. And he's like, fuck, I don't want to do that. I'm like, yeah, neither do I. Let's just finish dinner. By the time we were done, it's like we were writing Jokers, and we were reading Joker.
So it sounds like that particular book, I mean, it wasn't something that you actively went out to write? No. Is there any books that you have, or any characters that you have actively fought to write, any ones that you've gone, you know what, I want to do that? Just gone to editors?
No.
No? Fair enough.
What? Yeah, no. Maybe Wonder Woman? Maybe?
Yeah.
But even that was sort of like, I fell into it. It was not anything I wanted to do. There was another dinner. It was with Dan. I was supposed to be doing one of the other Justice League characters that I'd finally like, all right, I've come up with a story for this character, I'll do it. So it's like, okay, let's go. We talked it out, and then he was, they were revamping all the characters at the time, and I said, like, what are you going to do with X? And it got to Wonder Woman, and I was appalled by what they were going to do. And I said, you cannot do that to that character. That will fundamentally damage that character at the core. It's like, you just can't do it. So what if you did this instead? And then I was writing Wonder Woman.
Okay. Is that very similar to, in terms of the things you've done with Marvel recently for yourself, Donny? Did you actively ask to do Venom? Did you actively ask to do the books you've done, or are they ones that have been suggested for you?
It's always a bit of a combination of both, right? So when I first started, obviously I wasn't exclusive, and so I was actually at Emerald City Comic Con last year, and I got a phone call from Marvel and ran outside to take it because at the time 3 of my creator-owned books had just kind of come out in the past 4 months. It was God Country, Baby Teeth, and Redneck, and they were all doing fairly well. They were getting a good amount of attention, and I was a little frustrated that I wasn't getting drafted by the NFL. I was like, how many other books does a guy got to do, man? Come on. And so I sent an email out to my editor, who I interned for, Jordan White, and just said, hey, I wanted you to see this. This is my new image book. It's God Country. And I kind of forgotten about all of it, because I used to do that for every book I did. I'd try and put it in people's hands, and most of the time in email it just goes to the junk drawer, but if you know them enough, then maybe they'll take a peek at it, right? It's a total crapshoot. But Jordan opened it, loved it, went and showed it to Axel, and then Axel had Jordan call me, and so I was in Seattle, and I went outside, and it was pouring rain, and Jordan answered the phone, and he said, how would you like to come and write Thanos for us? And I had to cover the phone and just freak the fuck out. Because not only was it my first Marvel big break, but I am such an enormous Thanos fan and such a huge just cosmic Marvel guy in general, and so to get those reins, and then he said, we don't really have any ideas for what you might do, but Jeff has already written issues 1 through 12, so we'll send you those scripts tonight, because he was way far ahead. We'll send you those scripts tonight and look over them on Monday, and come back on Monday with what you might want to do, and then on Monday I hadn't written a single word for a pitch. I just got him on the phone and I just told him everything. I was just like, I got it right now. And he dug it, and away we went. Except for there's the cool part of it is that we kept on trying to find an artist for it. And there's a lot of names thrown around, and then Axel Alonso was actually the person who said, well, what about the artist he did God Country with? Like, we all liked that guy, why aren't we talking about him? And so I called Jeff and I said, dude, do you want to come and do Thanos with me? And he goes, nah, I'm good on all that, man. I was like, what are you talking about? It's a big Marvel book. And he's like, yeah, I don't care. He legitimately just doesn't care about Marvel and DC books. He just wants to do cool stories. So we moved on, and then later in the conversation, he was like, what is your Thanos story about anyway? And so I told him the whole story, like from tip to tail about what it was about. And when I was done, there's like a bit of silence, and he was like, well, damn it, now I want to draw that story. If they're going to let you do that, then yeah, I'm all in. So it was, I got to call Marvel and tell him that he was in, and then I've actually been incredibly fortunate in my career at Marvel so far to get to work with people that I'm very comfortable with and that I can write for because I've written for them in the past, you know. But as far as
when it comes to those books, and when it comes to like cosmic ghostwriting, when it comes to Venom and Thanos,
yeah,
it seems like the tone is slightly different to your creator-owned work. You are definitely having a lot more fun playing with Marvel's sandbox. Is that would that be accurate?
Well, here's the thing about the Marvel sandbox is I think newer writers come in and they treat them as very precious because the toys don't belong to them. And as a poor kid growing up, I've always thought that you play rougher with the toys that you don't own, right? You break them and then they're someone else's problem. So I read someone's tweet online one time who was working at a rival company who said that their only job at this company is to come in, tell the best stories that they can tell, and leave the house still standing when they leave. And I DM'd him and I said, man, that house is going to rebuild itself whether or not you're there or not. Burn it the fuck to the ground while you're there. Like, just have fun, get people's attention, get them to wake up, you know. That's not to say that, like, everything you write at Marvel has to be a Fast and Furious film. It doesn't. Like, you can absolutely have things to say, and, you know, I think that Doctor Strange had a lot to do with me. I'm 5 years sober next month, and so thank you. And but Doctor Strange came out during a time when I lost someone in my family, and I got into pills pretty bad, which was a bummer. So if you read Doctor Strange, it's just all about him being exiled by his own hubris and choices. And then everything is kind of like that. At the same time, they are kind of designed to be these action-packed, oh my god, I have to pick up issue 2 because that page 20 was insane kind of a thing, you know? I don't know that I approach creator-owned books different than I do work-for-hire books, because at the end of the day, to be quite frank, the only thing that matters on the cover, that matters for the quality that I put into it, is my name. Yeah, my name's on a book. I want retailers and audiences to be able to trust that I'm giving it my whole ass, right? So yeah,
that makes sense. When it comes to playing then with the DC sandbox and with the characters that you do, does the prestige format books that you do, because they are away from the main continuity, as it were, does that give you a bit more freedom in terms of how you approach, say for example, Batman and Joker?
Sure. Yes,
Is that part of the fun and the appeal for you?
No. No, I mean, and you know, like you, I don't change my approach on creator-owned or the mainstream stuff either. I mean, everything you said, plus it's got to be entertaining to me when I'm doing it. You know?
Sorry, I didn't. I remember when I first got to Marvel, I had a numerous amount of writers who had just around the same time left Marvel and were not happy with them, and they kept on telling me things like watch my back and like don't give them anything, like don't give Marvel new ideas and new properties, save those for yourself. And while I absolutely hear where they're coming from, at the same time I'm not going to, nor am I capable of writing with one arm tied behind my back, you know. And to do my job successfully, I need kind of all the tools at my, you know, at my disposal. And I like to think that I'm a big boy. I'm under no illusion that if I, you know, create a character that I get to go home with the prom date. You know, it's theirs. It's fine.
The whole idea of saving stuff, I've heard that too for a long time. It's like, if you do that, you're kind of saying, I'm not going to have any more ideas.
Right.
You know, which is bullshit.
I think someone interviewed you recently about, this is to Donny, about your current output and how it seems that you seem to be spinning a lot of plates. There's a lot of stuff that you're doing at the moment, and you kind of replied, well, it's just the way it's coincidentally that the way that the release schedule has happened. But you do like to have a number of projects on the go. Do you like that approach to have like different stories you can kind of dip into, which you can keep rolling on, or do you like to focus on one project and get it done? What's your take?
Hard to tell which one I like better. You know, I've been down to, so when I think about having like 1 or 2 books due a month, that reminds me, I start to get like, I start to fidget, because that feels a lot like when I was first starting out and having to go and work at like sandwich stores, right? Now, just last month, it ballooned up to 9 projects. That's only 9 comic book projects. I have 2 others that are in TV and film as well. But it's what I was telling you guys outside, is that on the outside where you guys are sitting, it looks like I'm writing a million titles. I'm genuinely not. Just the way that the publishing calendar comes out. So like Ghost Rider #3 comes out next week, but I've been done writing that entire series for a month now. Same thing with Death of the Inhumans. Death of the Inhumans 4 comes out next week. I've been done for a while, you know. And like Guardians of the Galaxy, which Jeff Shaw and I are taking over in January. I'm 2 issues deep into it already, and it comes out in January. So who knows, right? That's not even a Marvel mandated thing. That is a kind of a me mandated thing, in so much as having gone through art school, especially art school that specialized in comics, I got to see how the pie is made. I get to see classes, people are penciling and inking, and you know, just every single part of it. And so I know how incredibly stressful it can be to be at the end of the assembly line. And it stresses me out to no end to think that anyone on that line is having trouble paying their bills because I can't come up with a cool thing for Thanos to punch. You know, like it's our job is hard, and I don't want to make our job seem small or anything, but it is physically less taxing, and we can work on multiple titles at once, and they cannot. And so when you're lazing about on a script and trying to find your muse and everything, well, there's a few dozen people all around the country that are sweating because they can't pay their rent. And for me, that's the greatest motivation out there. I mean, something's gonna come out. This is why we have second drafts over inks. You can go back in and fix dialogue if you absolutely have to. That being said, to answer your question more specifically, I tend to outline like crazy. Like when I pitch on a new book, so I'm exclusive, so every time I get down to a certain amount of titles, So like I'm on Guardians and Venom right now. If one of those drops off or I get to a point where I'm done, they will contractually have to fill that spot with something else. And what happens is they bring me a list of books, and I kind of pick which one I'm interested in, and then I'll write up a proposal for that thing I want to do, right? And so, you know, they must have brought me, I don't know, a dozen things before I landed.
Well, can you pick a couple out which they approached you with?
Yeah, I was approached to do Cable, which would have been rad. I got approached to do Shang-Chi, which I couldn't find an angle on Shang-Chi because he's Iron Fist with no powers. So, yeah. Right. A bunch of other ones. The Resurrection of Jean Grey event. I was supposed to do that, but I'm not your X-Men guy. But just stuff like that. But eventually, you know, I turned down enough stuff to where I got a couple of cool things that I wanted. Am I answering?
Yeah,
okay. Sorry.
For yourself, Brian, then you've obviously got Batman Damned on your plate at the moment. Do you like working with multiple projects, or do you like to just stick to a project until it's done and focus on that single project? Both. Fair enough. How did Batman Damned come about then, with the launch of the Black Label for DC?
How'd that come about? That started when we were done with Joker. So 10 years ago.
Wow, all the way that far back?
Yeah. Joker came out, no one had any idea it was going to do as well as it did, or get the reception that it did. And when that happened, Will Dennis and his assistant Mark Doyle at the time, they're like, why don't we do more of this stuff? And talked to Dan, and Dan's like, yeah, I think that's good. It's sort of like, you know, slightly off reinterpretations of these characters, with, you know, in a hardcover format and like mature readers, and it was called Jokerverse for a long time, and that was going along. It looked like it was going to get off the ground, and then Watchmen happened, and R-rated superheroes were not so popular, and so then it got shelved. And then they came back to it. You know, it's like Lee and I are not taking any sort of different approach to Damned because it's mature readers than we've done in the past. You know, it's the way we work together.
Obviously, the Damned has gotten a lot of press. It's out next week. But you were talking to us about how you're just happy that the book is selling well, or is it going to sell well? It's looking like it's going to be it is a success. It's a case of then negotiating around all the noise that's being generated around the book. How do you kind of shut that out, if you can?
You can't. But we're done. So
yeah.
No.
Is Lee's work done on the book?
No, Lee's not totally done.
Yeah.
But you know, what's going to happen is going to happen. It's interesting that it became a pop culture event. You know, whatever.
Yeah. And we will get into that, no doubt, when we have a couple of questions, which we are going to do very shortly indeed. We do have a microphone that's wandering around. We've got somebody who's going to help us out in a second with that. And the best way we do it is if you want to throw your hand up, and we'll get questions from the audience. Shall we do that now? Shall we go? Yeah, let's launch into some audience questions. So if you'd like to put your hand up if you have any questions, please, for Donny and for Brian, please. We have somebody all the way over there.
Okay, so up here in the middle.
Decent stuff. Your question, your name and your question, please.
My name is Lucy. Do you have any advice for anyone who wants to, like, trying to draw their own comics?
Any advice? Well, not necessarily drawing, but certainly getting into the industry and kind of making a mark to kind of get into the making comics for themselves.
The question is how to kind of get in the industry.
Yeah, really, yeah.
Notice. Are you just raise your hand because I can't hear you? Are you a writer or are you an artist?
What's that, sorry?
Artist.
Artist. She's an
Artist. Okay. Well, I mean, this might sound strange to hear, but breaking in as an artist is a lot easier than what we do. If you're doing things like a portfolio review, an editor can know what you're good at and where you're not and what you need improvement with, like that, right? They all have very sharp trained eyes if they've been in the industry for long enough, and they can kind of instantly tell if you have the chops or not. Or, you know, even if you don't have the chops right now, they can tell you X, Y, and Z will get you there, right? If we tried, when we were both little baby creators, to put a script in front of an editor's hand, and there's absolutely,
I tell everybody, like, when, you know what these curtains are for? That's so you don't see your script when the editor, at a convention.
Yeah.
It's like, they don't even take it.
No one wants to read it. I mean, look, I mean, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter how good your script is. I mean, because the difference is, I suppose, is that when you're turning in visual samples, you get a good read at least how, even without a script, you're able to tell a story in a visual medium, right? In a comic book script by its kind of default is a letter from one person to about 3 people. We are writing a script to our artist and to our editorial team, and for the grand purpose of it all, those are the 3 people who are ever going to read this, right? And so they can be as casual or as formal depending on who you're working with, but it doesn't really, it's not something that you would really use as a tryout. Now what you should do is, and this would be helpful for you as well, is no one really cares if you can draw that great. If you can do like pinups and stuff like that, that's well and fine. And certainly we have a whole lot of cover artists. What they need to be able to tell is if you're telling a story. And the best way to go about that, in my opinion, is find somebody who has a really powerful script. Pick some scenes that are action scenes, pick some scenes that are just a couple in a diner talking, right? Pick someone that someone's crying or angry, just show a wide range and follow that script, because then what you're doing is that you're giving them an example of how you follow instructions and how you convey certain beats and how you sell certain beats on a page, which is ultimately what they're always trying to find. And back to some points that were raised over here, you can also reverse engineer a page in this same way as well. So go and find a Watchmen or a Dark Knight Returns or the current run of Venom, which I heard is great, and deconstruct it and see if you can pick up, like write out what's happening in each panel, right, and the dialogue, and then just go draw that and see how it compares. See, oh, that's how he crammed that much space in, that's how he created that depth of field, things like that, you know? And you end up learning a lot by seeing how claustrophobic a panel can get when it gets smaller, how big it can open up, things like that. That's what I would do.
A real good exercise is to take a film that you like and draw it. Every time the camera changes, freeze it and draw what you see. You're going to learn storytelling that way.
If there's anyone that you could recommend, without mentioning your name or each other's names, who's writing and whose art is really kind of exciting you at the moment in terms of books that are out there? Do you read much in terms? Do you get the time?
You know who I kind of like right now is, no, I don't read it a lot, so I'm just going to tell you what I'm reading. What's his name? Alice Scott?
Alice Scott?
Yeah. I read that. Somebody recommended him, and I read a couple of his series. He's like, yeah, this stuff's pretty good.
I mean, my answer to this question has for the longest time been and will still be Jason Aaron. Jason Aaron, I believe, is one of the finest writers in the industry right now. I'm not one to ever say that, like, oh, everything that writer has done is golden, but so far so good Jason's name is on the side of a book, it's gold.
I'll go along with that. Okay, any other questions? We've got one right at the back. But, oh, we've got one over here as well. The microphone is running in this direction. This gentleman here. Excellent stuff. Your name and your question, sir.
It's Douglas. My question is, have you ever had the opportunity to work with creators you've looked up to when you were younger?
I am waiting for Frank Miller's name to get mentioned at least once on this panel.
Boy, you know, he didn't spring to my
Really?
mind. Yeah. Yes, I worked with Joe Kubert. That was like a pinnacle for me. That was really me working with somebody who, as a kid, I would trace. And like I had Tarzan, and I drew that thing 100 times, and Sergeant Rock, and all those.
Was it as good an experience as you imagined it when you, as a kid?
Was it? Well, I never imagined I'd work with them as a kid, but you know, I worked with them. And you know, working with Frank, that was cool too. And then I worked with Richard Corbin. I liked Richard Corbin when I was slightly older than Joe Kubert, but you know, I've been lucky that way. You know. Donny?
I just went over to Alan Moore's house and just said hi to him. Does that count? Super good dude.
I saw that picture on Instagram.
It really did happen.
How
I really did.
you keep it together, man?
I really did just go to his house and knock on his door. It was awesome. Let's see, who have I worked with that was phenomenal? You know, early on in my career, I got to do I got to do this Archer and Armstrong, the characters from Valiant. I got to do this 12-page little backup story. This is back when I was a very, very baby writer, and there was this gag about the eternal warrior who was supposed to be like the ultimate badass, right? And he kept on saying these things, and at each and every caption there was just like I eat nails for breakfast, blah 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 blah, just like really over the top stuff. And then one of them had an asterisk in it. It had an asterisk in it because I was staying at Mark Wade's house the night I wrote it. I was on tour, and Mark allowed me to stay in his house. And so I was sitting up writing, and I turned to Mark and I said, "Hey, can you give me one of these?" And so I believe it says it's like I eat nails for breakfast, and then it's like I snort glass to calm down. Asterisk written by Mark Wade. I was very proud of that one. And then who else? I just met Jim Starlin the other day, which was a huge deal for me. I'm a huge Starlin nut, and I hope that the picture that I put up of us online finally quells that debate, whether or not Jim Starlin hates me or not. He doesn't. Who else, man? I mean, you know what's really cool? I don't know that this is very cool for me. When I was a little kid, when I first went into my first comic book store, like the first comic book store that I called a home, because I used to do like spinner racks at like grocery stores and stuff. The first comic I saw, I was already really into Venom, but there was this kind of metallic red book on the shelves, and it was called Carnage Mind Bomb. And it was Ellis and Kyle Hotz who did the art. And the art is unbelievably gruesome. Like it's terrifying that the book even got published. Like Carnage drills a hole into the side of this psychiatrist's skull and then fills his brain with symbiote goop so you can see through his eyes. It's horrific. But anyway,
there's a kid down there who's just like, that sounds so cool.
You are the exact age I saw that. You're gonna love it. And so I've had that issue forever, and then I finally I'm doing a Carnage thing now. It comes out next month, and we were able to get Kyle Hotz to do the cover for it. So to me, that's such a cool, like full circle kind of a thing. It's very cool.
That's very excellent. I think we've got time for just one more question, I'm afraid.
We have
We've got a question at the well, yeah, we've got a question here. He's here. Go for it, sir. Your name and your question, please.
My name is Gary, and can you dab?
Can you dab?
Yeah.
I don't even, well, I personally don't even know what
You mean like,
well, yeah.
Yeah, that.
see, I'm here, guys. I'm the voice of a generation. Hova.
Something tells me we're not going to get Brian.
Next question.
Next question. We've got one last question, then we'll just fit it in at the end. One last one. Your choice. So, hands in the air. Let's see who wants to ask a question. I've got a question down. Oh, very young gentleman down here. Hello there, young sir. Right, your name and your question, please.
Do you like the movies?
Do you like the movies? I'm guessing the
Like, no, like the ones that aren't the MCU ones, but the other movies, like the Sony ones or the Fox ones.
So the non-Marvel movies you're talking about, like the
superhero movies? It sounds like you actually are thinking of a particular movie in your mind, aren't you? Yeah, I thought as much. Which movie are you thinking? What's your favourite? Oh no, he's keeping quiet.
Listen, if you're trying to ask me about Venom, contractually it looks dope.
Oh, is that sorry?
Flying in the wind like a turd.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate line too, buddy. We're not happy about it either.
Ladies and gents, I think we can carry on talking with these two for quite some time because they have got more stories to tell and I've been very much looking forward to reading them. Ladies and gents, can you make some noise please? Brian Azzarello and Donny, everybody! And keep that applause going because I want to start with this. Belated birthday! Can we have a round of applause for Donny Casey celebrating his birthday last Saturday? Happy birthday! Enjoy the rest of the con and have yourself a fantastic MCM Scotland, everybody! Donny and Brian, everybody!
And please, guests will be at the table, so please